was part of the 4th of July Association. And essentially it was part of a grant program, so we were paid for our time and supplies. But they chose the location, we made a design, and they accepted the design, and we painted this mural. It was about 8 by 5 feet. It was pretty big. It was pretty large. It's still there until probably mid early October. Now, that's not the only mural I've done. Last year I was commissioned to do 3 murals on storm drains in the city of Elgin. So Elgin Arts Committee had reached out to me, and I submitted, I did a proposal, they accepted it, and then me and my husband went out and we painted on the storm drains in Elgin. Those will still be there. The plan was to keep those there for about 5 years. So you have another 3.5 years. So just a little bit about me. I do a lot of art, various arts. I started with really just like colored pencils, pencil drawings, and then in college I did my first acrylic painting, and then most recently within the last year I've done oil paints, oil paintings. I did bring one of my examples here. It's a lady with the sunflowers on her on the reef. She's playing a hurdy-gurdy. That's what it's called. It's a Renaissance instrument. I didn't finish it, but I thought I would bring it here just to show. So, other than that, I've been doing leather for about a year, maybe a little bit less than a year. And my very first piece, go big or go home, I made this one. It's actually a mask. And I get the patterns from Etsy. So there are places where you can get pre-made patterns, and then you just place the pattern like this feather, which I'll be demonstrating on how to make. You just place it on the vegetable tan leather, so it's like a hide, a cow hide. I get my supplies from Tandy Leather in Elgin. I get some of my stuff from Weaver, which I only get it online. But basically, I take the template, doesn't matter what it is. I take the template, I'll outline it with, this is called an awl. It's just a really pointy piece of metal. And then I'll outline the piece, which I'll do right now. So my final product is going to be this bookmark. So it's meant to look like a feather. And the very first step, if you can see, take my awl, is just trace. Now when I trace into the leather, because I'm pressing down hard enough, it leaves an indent.
Is that the smooth side of the leather?
Yes, so there's going to be the hairy side and the smooth side. So this is vegetable tanned leather, meaning that it's put into a solution of different tree barks and roots and other things, and it's left there for about 20 to 30 months. And it stops it from decomposing, essentially. And if I were to leave this in water and put it in my fridge, it would start rotting. So keep it dry until you're able to treat it. And there's certain things that I use to treat it. I have conditioner here. So the leather at first is very stiff, very hard, which leather is just skin from a cow. And I can use leather from pigs, cows, and then I can use like alligator or some other weird ones here. In fact, I have one. I made a wallet of alligator. Okay.
How much does leather cost?
So it depends. This piece here is $20.
How big is it?
I would say it's maybe, I don't know, 4 feet long. Yeah, about 4 feet by a foot maybe. But normally I get like a shoulder of a cow, and the shoulder is about 100, 110. If you get like the higher quality, it can get more expensive, of course. I do mid quality, and it's also based off of ounces. So ounces is like the thickness of the leather. This here is probably like a 5 to 6 ounce. This is probably a 3 to 4, so it's a lot thinner. It's also, I'll show you in a moment, but I'll also be skiving it. What skiving is flipping it over and thinning it out. All right, so let me finish tracing this. No, just YouTube videos.
So how did you learn about all the leathers? Just by buying the wrong things?
Kind of. So I had to learn everything like I normally do the hard way, and usually the hard way means going online and doing a lot of research. My research consisted of just reading the instructions that come with the templates. Like this wasn't a template. This was just all me. It's a loincloth. But the masks here were all templates. Same thing with the wallets. So they're pre-made. They have instructions already. They also tell you what thickness of leather, what type of leather you should look for. And then you just go to the store and ask the gentleman there, where is this? Where can I get it?
I was thinking of curb leather. So you pick up a sofa on the curb.
Like a leather sofa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make in almost anything with leather.
That would give you big pieces of leather.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. And there's a reason why sofas, leather sofas especially, are $1,000, $2,000, $5,000.
Yeah, but there's plenty.
But I'm sure they get it in bulk too. So the more you get, like anything else, of course, the cheaper it's going to be.
No, but I'm talking about stuff that's left on the curb.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. Then you just throw in a truck.
Could you utilize that?
Potentially. So I could probably use upholstery leather to do stuff like this, where it's already pre-dyed, pre-treated and everything. I do everything from scratch. Like there's other tools you can get, like sewing machines that are specific to leather. I hand stitch everything. So I make the holes myself. I have these tools here. And there's different attachments, but this is what I use to add holes. Yes. So everything here, including this guy, you can see it on the horns pretty well. I hand stitched it all.
That would be hard to do with a machine.
I also lined it with another piece of leather inside, which I glued with cement leather. Or I didn't bring it with me, but yeah, it's leather cement. Okay.
Fast,
Mhm.
used in shows.
So we go to a lot of different conventions and shows. Besides the Bristol Renaissance Fair, we do C2E2, ASEN, we do Anime Midwest, Anime Milwaukee. We do just tons of different shows, and we just dress up and walk in, and everyone else is dressed up and walk in, and we're nerds. I'm proud of it. All right, so you really can't see it very well, but if you look here, I started etching, and I just traced the feather. So now I'm going to cut it out. I get to use sharp tools. Yes, it is.
How long does that blade last you?
A long time.
Really?
I've got this maybe 6 months ago, and I'm still in the same blade.
Is it special
It's just an X-Acto knife from Milwaukee.
Just keep pushing it up.
Hmm. Yeah, like these can be replaced. There's a button here. They just come right out.
He said he replaced it once.
Yeah, I did.
See, I don't know what my husband does.
See, I didn't think it would last that long because of the thickness of the leather, yeah.
It might last you a long time. Go and replace all the sharp now, which is not looking.
But then you also do that.
That's why it works so long. So impressive.
At least that's what I do.
But you can see, I'm starting to just cut it out.
Yeah.
But the actual art of leather making is a very, very old skill. It's been going on for a very, very long time all over the world.
Some of our very first garments.
Mm-hmm. So with this template that I'm using is actually free at tandyleather.com. They had a project earlier this year where you can make and donate your feathers, and it was put into a museum.
Laser printer or something.
No, you can just cut it out by hand, make the feathers.
To get the pattern.
Oh yeah, it's just a PDF you can download. It's free, and you just cut it out.
Are they very handy at Tandy?
Oh yeah, they have classes.
Well, I just, well, there used to be one in Indianapolis that I, centuries ago, used to visit, and it was, you just go in there and there was like nobody to help you, so I was just curious whether they.
Yeah, the
50 years ago.
the gentleman so where we're at currently, Grays Lake, we're in the middle of the location in Elgin and Milwaukee.
Oh,
So there's actually no local shop in the area, and Weaver's down south, like Texas area. So I go to Elgin quite often anyways. So, because I do a lot of art gallery showings, projects up there, and I'm usually there. So even though I live 5 minutes that way. All right, so I cut out my piece. Now the next part is to skive it. So skiving it just means I'm thinning out the edges to make it look more like a feather. So the middle's thicker and the outside is thin.
It's like shaving. in fact.
It's literally shaving it down.
Which is you're pulling along the length of it.
No, out towards the tip of the feather.
Yeah, towards the tip. There's no, so like certain fabrics, materials, especially synthetic materials, you'll have a right way and a wrong way. And you'll see that a lot, especially like velveteen or certain like hair fabrics. This is not that way. So the only thing I'm doing is just thinning out the edges, because then I'm going to what's called beveling. I'm going to bevel or indent the spine of the feather. And that's by using this tool. But first, after I'm done skiving, I'm going to wet the leather, let it sit for maybe a minute. When you wet leather, it'll make it soft and pliable to make deeper changes to. Because if I were to take this and let's say just hit the leather that's not wet, the indentations, you're not going to see it. So that's why you have to wet it. Now for today, I thought this would be easy enough. I was thinking, maybe I should make a wallet or something that, deals with sewing, and I decided to bring an example. I brought my stitching pony over here, which I'm making a skull. It's like this. And really, a stitching pony, it just holds up the piece of leather that you're hand stitching.
oh, interesting.
So I didn't make the wallet today, but I just brought this as an example, and I already pre-punched all the holes. And I used a wax thread.
Is it the same kind of thread you do for bookbinding, or do you buy it from a leather place?
I buy it from a leather place. I get it pre-waxed. Just find it a little bit easier that way, but you can get it and then just get some beeswax and then just wax it yourself. Now, leather making can be very messy, as you can see.
You only shave one side?
I'm going to do both.
But you only shave from the hairy side, right?
Yes, yes, of course, because the top is eventually going to be dyed. So I will be dyeing this.
I meant the other side, the foot side, you don't have to shave that side.
No, 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 no. That's the side that gets dyed.
That's the skin side, right?
Yes, correct. So it's just like if you have your skin, just in comparison. You know, you have the soft side, and then underneath is going to be hairy, yeah. Now there are vegan alternatives to using like animal leather. People make leather out of pineapple leaves and cactus. But trying to get a supplier, you have to go online. There's nowhere local that has it. See, I only use animal leather, animal hide. Normally I'll use cow. It's a little messy. Okay, so I did just make my edges thinner, and the middle is still pretty thick, and it's also messy. So every so often I'll bring my vacuum because I don't want my cats getting into my leather pieces. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so now clean my area. And I'm going to wet it. So I just have water and a sponge. When I wet the vegetable tan leather, turn to dark color.
You're wetting the skin side now.
Yes, correct. So this is the hair side.
Right.
That's the skin side. Okay. So I'm going to bevel. So I'm going to use this to stamp. So I'm actually pressing into the leather because you can't see the bottom or the tip of this piece, but it's at an angle. So what I'm doing, I'm adding like a slope. So I'm doing this with my spine of the feather. And there's different tools that leave different impressions. For example, the armor, I use 3 different tools. It's not all sewing. This is actually 3 stamps. So I have this like an arrow stamp. Then I have like this grain color along the edge. So it's actually 2. In fact, I have them right here. I use this one. And I did every single one, and I went boop, 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 boop. All right. actually. I'm also going to swivel knife this. So this is, it just has a little blade at the end. If I place my finger on the top, it swivels. It's called a swivel knife. And it's just adding, so I make a deeper indent.
So is that what you use to smooth it out too, or does it not need any smoothing out?
No, the top does not need any smoothing out. So in fact, I'm actually going to add some texture to it. Is the camera still delaying? It's great. And then the harder I hit, the deeper the indent will be. No, it's not going through.
But Sam, it doesn't bounce back, does it?
No. Because I wet it. If I didn't wet it, it wouldn't keep this indent. Also, you may see like hats that it's one piece of leather. So what they do, they get like this. It's called an anvil, but I have one that has like a rounded top. You wet the leather really, really well, and you just, it's called water forming. And then you get that cap. And you can sew that cap to another piece of leather for the rim. So it's just really how they make hats. So basically what I'm doing is not necessarily forming this to anything, but I'm leaving an indent, and I want that indent to stay. Okay.
If it gets wet, if it gets wet again, it won't change.
No, so if it were to get wet again, by then I would have dyed it and treated it, so it's not gonna, it'll be waterproof.
Okay, got it.
Just like a hat, if you got your hat wet, it's not gonna go like that. It's still gonna form to your head. All right, so I think
That is cool. It seems awfully labor intensive.
it is.
Small item, how long does it take to make and profit?
Well, the first wallet I did took about 4 hours.
The first what?
Wallet.
Oh,
So this guy right here.
only 4 hours?
Well, I have really fast. I put a piece of paper in here. So I hand stitched everything. I glued it. That's my first wallet. Now, this wallet over here, because I did stamping and painting, it's just Van Gogh inspired. This took me about 11 hours.
And you painted that?
Yes, and it's stamped as well, just like what I'm doing here. So I'll draw it out.
Yeah.
And then sunflowers on the one side, lilies on the other.
So you sell these also?
Not yet. These are my first 3 wallets that I've made this week.
Really?
Yes.
And you work full-time?
Yes. So I'm a benefits determination specialist for the United Methodist Church. So I minister death benefits. But this is my passion. This is my love. What I do here is eventually when I retire in 30 plus years, I hope to be doing something like this and traveling. So, but right now I'm still working. All right, now next, so I'm done with this tool. Now, you know how feathers have like this grain on it? Like it's not just like skin where it's flat. This is what this tool does. It adds a little bit of texture. So while it's wet, I'm gonna go along the way that I want my texture to be. Actually, it doesn't need that. It just needs this. And because the leather has been sitting long enough, I can just press down with my weight Actually don't need to use the mallet. You know, when I did these feathers, I actually made my own texture because I didn't have this tool. I got this tool maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. So then when this dries, it looks even more authentic. And as they say, imperfection makes it look more authentic. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of my other stuff, you know, it isn't perfect. You can't tell. Okay, so just compare what I did. This side was where I added the grain. This side has no grain yet. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I usually watch videos or listen to music while I do this. It just helps the time go by. Now with the leather, so far I've added the grain. But you can see it's kind of messy around the edges. Now for this, it's really up to you if you want to clean it or not because it's thin enough. I don't have to use my knife per se. I just use scissors.
Could you burn it up?
You can, but then when you burn it, it's like you're burning skin. So it's going to smell a little. And if you can just cut it off, just cut it off. But honestly, it's a feather, so just leave it. Okay, so next step, hoping it dries. Clean my area. I'm done with my skiving. All right. The next step is dyeing. So I actually already have a pre-dyed piece. So this piece, what I did, I had several cups of, I used Pro Dye, and then I put a little bit of dye, half dye, half water, and soap. And then I blew with a straw, you know, the bubbles on the leather to get this like really cool texture. And that's actually what I did with these. You can tell I pre-dyed these. Same thing with my wristband. So it's from the same piece of leather. All right. But okay.
What is the dye?
Yeah. So these are Pro Dyes. So Pro Dye I prefer because they're alcohol based. So once you put it on there, it pretty much absorbs and then it's dry. I can also use water stain, which is more like a paint. It still absorbs it to an extent, but you're going to get like a shiny consistency on top rather than like this dull color. So this is a Pro Dye. This is the blue. So I'm actually going to use a little bit of each.
This stain, once it's on.
You cannot get it off.
Okay. So
Once it's on, it's done.
So the book is not going to show a feather where you stop reading.
You'll still see the grain of the feather.
He wants to make sure it doesn't transfer onto the book.
Oh, no. because I'm going to condition it and I'm also going to antique it. So I'm going to give it like an aged look. It's not. And I'm going to rub it, most of the dye off. So I'm going to use some water stain. And I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to make it balayage.
Jeff, this video is great. This screen is, it's terrific.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
See better than Karen, can't do it. Now, does this dry darker or lighter?
It depends. So for the blue, it dries pretty dark. But I've also antiqued this one.
So that little mask, who's that for? Is that for your cat?
It just goes in my office. So I have another one. I just call it, I give it a nickname, just leave it on my desk.
What kind of paint you pull through?
What kind of paint is that?
This is dye. It's a dye. I also paint the back, or dye the back. Normally I'd wait till it's dry.
I see where you wear rubber gloves.
Because I'm skinned, so I would dye myself. All right, gonna get some blue.
Now, you seem to be rubbing it sort of hard. Is that to get the dye into the
You don't have to. I'm not using a lot of dye, so normally I would just dip it and go.
Are you using a lot of pressure to dye it?
Not really. You can also get what a lot of leather artists do that actually have like plastic bins with the dye, and I'll just dip the whole piece in it. And honestly, it's the easiest. Okay.
I like that wall you have for all the tools to fit in.
Cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
That
Did
is-
you design that tool holder, or is that something you buy?
No, that's something you buy. I got it from Tandy.
that is cool.
All right.
You have to buy the tools individually? or-
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot of tools.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold that up to the screen?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bookmark.
Okay.
Now, as the dye dries, does it change colors at all?
Not really. It may lighten or darken depending on what color you use, but so I have to let that dry.
Can you blend colors together? Or
Yeah. You can, but I would suggest.
On the piece or on the dish?
What do you mean?
On your, can you blend the color?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and there's also things that you can get to kind of water it down because you can't just put water in it. It's called Resolene, and my husband loves it. This piece actually has a mixture of Resolene and green dye because otherwise it would be too dark.
Jam is dye reducer.
Or dye reducer.
Lens is the other.
So it's a dye reducer.
So how long does that take to dry?
Maybe 5-10 minutes. It's almost dry actually. So, and you know it's dry because it'll start to harden. So once it's dyed and dried, that's when I take my leather conditioner. So it's like a waxy substance. Because the dye, because it's alcohol based, will actually dry this out substantially. And to make sure that it doesn't, I want this to last for a while.
Is that lanolin by any chance?
Hmm?
Is that lanolin by any chance?
It's beeswax.
Okay, all right.
It's a leather conditioner with beeswax.
Use it on my boots.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for leather shoes and boots.
It makes it waterproof as well. It's not Vaseline.
Big German guy.
Yeah.
8:09. You wanna take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break because I want this to dry. So, break time. And give me some time to clean up.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
never mind, I thought, I know.
All right, everyone, let's go. I'd like to get home tonight.
Yeah, we're almost done.
Yeah.
I just have paint. Hmm?
Okay.
We're almost done. So we did the majority of the work. So we traced out, we cut out the template. I put the feathering texture on the feather, dyed it, and then conditioned it. So condition is really important because it'll make the leather last longer, also make it waterproof, which is great. So now since it had some time to dry, it's more stiff. It's still a little wet, but it's good enough to the point where I can add paint.
When you don't add anything to make it stiff, it just dries stiff,
It dries stiff, correct.
but it still comes stiff.
A little bit, yeah. So it's just like these guys. So eventually it'll become like this. So right now it's not going to do that.
But they're bendable.
Yeah, I can bend it.
Is there any way you would use something like that as a sort of a collage and a painting or anything? Have
Yeah,
tried
you-
anything like that?
Oh, absolutely, you can. Just like my Van Gogh inspired wallet that I finished last night. So essentially it is a painting.
You also did the tiki head.
I also did, yeah, I also made tiki heads, which I framed, but I forgot them. So yeah, you can make portraits, you can do really anything you want. But if you were to do that, I highly recommend using a thicker leather. Don't get like the pre-dyed leather like they have that's really thin, because you can't, it won't take the stamp very easily.
Yeah, but if you're gonna glue or montage it onto something,
Mhm. Then it doesn't matter because what ended up happening with Tandy when they were taking these feathers for donation, they had a giant wall, and then they would just put up, all these feathers on the wall. And I was thinking at one point making a Krampus head and then the hair being feathers, leather feathers. So it's this guy. See about maybe eventually, but I would have to make a lot of feathers. Yeah, I could do that too. Okay. So since we need to get done, so the type of paint I'm using is acrylic, but it's a special leather paint, so it's bendable after you apply it. So it's the same paint that's on your shoes. And just like regular acrylic, you can water it down, unlike the dye.
The dye you diluted with something else.
Just water. Oh, the dye, I can use a dye reducer, and it will make it so it's not as dark. It'll be a lot lighter, which is actually what I used on this for the green.
So for this paint, you just paint on it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you actually paint on it now?
So I'm just adding some, so this is a metallic silver or pewter. So I'm adding some shiny edges.
How many hours have you got in this green dye?
How many hours do you think, Clint? The head alone is about 15 to 20 hours. The actual body of the armor is 30, 40 hours probably. So it does add up, but you know, I did it in a matter of probably a year.
So when you wear them, people offer to buy them from you?
I get asked sometimes, like, where did you buy this? And I'll tell them I made it myself. And they're like, oh, I want your information. So that's why I have a website now, which is brand new. I just finished the website about a month ago. So.
I've heard no products that are talking about shoes, like shoe polishes and things like that.
Yeah, so there's certain polishes that you can use. All of my stuff that I've not made shoes. I don't make shoes. I don't make hats. I do make masks, wallets, bracelets, keychains, armor, and there's so much other stuff that you can make out of leather. It doesn't have to be shoes. But there.
Making shoes, but like using saddle soaps and things like that that give you highlights and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff out there that I could use over time towards not necessarily just shoes, but there's so much out there. It's just like any art. It's not just one thing. Like I'm sure with acrylic, you can paint acrylic on anything. You can paint it on walls, you can paint it on canvas, paint it on wood, shoes. I painted on pants before. It's like there's so many possibilities for one sort of medium.
Well, but the thing you did where you blew air into the acrylic that you were, breathed the air into it to create the texture,
Hmm.
was a straw.
Oh yeah, with the
Yeah. So you're
I put it away.
almost immediately inventing stuff as you go.
Yeah, well, you can, and you can think of different ways to work with one type of medium. All right, that's done.
I can't really see a difference.
I'll show you. So now it's shiny. It's metallic. And I'm sure when it dries, I think that the bottom here, it looks really dark, but it's going to dry like a dark blue. It's going to be the same color as this. All right, and then the final step is antiquing. This is optional. It just gives it an aged look. So there's different types or different colors of antique. There's black, which I have. I mostly use with my stuff. There's also like brown and tan and other variations. But it looks kind of like tar. And the whole purpose is to get in the cracks, you know, where I ended up cutting. So it'll really make those cracks pop. Yeah, you just rub it on to rub it off. Yes. Exactly. And it's the same exact premise as wood stain. Now this, I'm actually rubbing it very gently, but I want it to get into like the cracks, especially around the stem of the feather. Okay. Again, this step is very optional if you want it to look brand new. But this can also hide imperfections in the paint or the dye. In fact, actually rubbed a little bit of it off.
What are you doing now?
I accidentally rubbed a little bit of the paint off. I'm just adding a little bit of back. Okay. Because it's still a little bit wet, I can form it and it'll actually keep its shape. Okay. And then this is called a rotary tool. It punches holes. So there's different sizes of holes I can punch. Currently I have it on a 2. Because it's going to be a bookmark. Just put a little hole. And that's just for where I put my beads.
And done, huh? Dustin, done and dusted.
Yeah. Well, I used that when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even hint how many hundred years ago.
I'm just tying the bead to the end.
You know, I found one on the floor with my foot, and I put it in front of you.
All right. And that's it. Got my bookmark.
Good night's work.
Thank you. And now it's just clean up. So it's the hardest part with any art project.
You are an excellent demonstrator. Excellent.
Thank you.
You do a good
Learned
job.
a lot and enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun.
That was apparent.
All right, any questions?
I just, how do you get the lettering on the bracelets?
Yes, so I actually have, it's a stamp. Actually, I think I have it. Yes. All right, so I have different size letters. This is the letter, and these are the really small ones. So take it out. Comes a piece of metal, and then each one. This is an R.
I'll take your word for it.
So
And then you hang it on there.
it's an R.
And then it goes.
And then you have to wet the leather.
Oh, okay.
The leather will absorb the water and become pliable. So then when you put the stamp down, there's actually a little notch on one side. So you know that is the bottom. So the whole purpose is to go bang, bang. But then you keep that there. Get the next letter.
Oh, then you get your spacing right.
Yeah.
Ah, clever.
There you go. That's it. And you just take it off and put it away. Just make sure you don't misspell something because it's permanent. And I'm sure you can also tape it if you want to, like a very clean straight line for your lettering. You can. And there's just bigger ones. And there's different font sizes, different, I don't know if, I think this is like an Arial or a Times New Roman. But you have to buy each one, each size, because you can't just make it bigger or smaller. So I do have these. And then I know Chris brought up something about the fuzzy side and the not fuzzy side of the leather. So the fuzzy side of the leather, if you wet it, you can actually use a leather burnisher. So it'll make the fuzzy side smooth. And you just do this.
I love those tools, they're so shiny.
That's it.
The collector of names.
Is the fuzzy side of the leather, is that suede?
Yes, that's the suede side, yes, that's the suede side. Either that or it's a split side, but they take the leather and they will cut it in, yeah, and so they love you for.
So of course, the more tools you have with leather making, the more options you have, the more possibilities you have. Yes, you can kind of get away with certain things with the tools, like minimum tools. But as you can see, my collection has grown with the last few months, and the people at Tandy Leather absolutely love me. So they do. All right, I'm all done. So thank you for coming, and have a great night.
We have one job